So welcome to Everything Marketplaces, where we talk with marketplace founders and leaders from some of today's top marketplaces. So this is episode 25, and I'm excited to welcome on Aaron Rubin, who is currently the founder and CEO of ShipHero. So ShipHero is a leader in the shipping and fulfillment space, and Aaron has scaled it to be a business with 170 plus employees without any institutional investment. So it's quite an impressive business, and I'm excited to chat with Aaron and learn more about it. So Aaron, welcome to the group chat, and let's maybe start off by you sharing more on your background for those that don't know you and what led you to start ShipHero.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So ShipHero is my second company. My first company was an e-commerce retailer. We sold apparel for a martial art called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I started that in college as a side hustle, and then it sort of took off. That was what I did from 1999 when I was 19 till 2013. My background was in computer programming. Doing the e-commerce business was mostly product development, marketing stuff that wasn't really in my wheelhouse, just sort of, that's what the business needed. I wanted to do something more on the tech side, on the engineering side. So started ShipHero in 2013. What ShipHero is, or what ShipHero was when we started, was a SaaS product that allows warehouses to ship e-commerce orders. And we sort of had two types of stakeholders, or two types of customers: brands that ship for themselves and what are called 3PL, third-party logistics companies, that ship for other people. So the way we sort of ended up in the marketplace-y sort of role was we had a lot of these 3PLs using our product, and we always intended our product to be able to be used by a single brand across multiple providers. So a use case might be one provider on the East Coast, one provider on the West Coast of the United States, or providers in Australia, Europe, US, Canada. So and we also wanted we wanted to reduce the friction of switching, because it's a huge problem in the industry. It's hard to switch between providers. So we also built it to be really easy to switch. And we ended up placing some merchants with 3PLs just manually, right? Like someone would reach out and say, hey, I'm looking for a 3PL. Like I use ShipHero in Europe, give me a 3PL in Australia I could talk to, things like that. So we did some of those manually, and then we decided, hey, why don't we try to productize that and just put up a way for anyone to connect with one of these 3PLs. So we're really excited about that. We invested a lot in that. We launched that, and basically it worked was, because all these arrangements are custom, there's not a standardized pricing, it's the norm in the industry. So we launched a site where basically you fill out some info, a bunch of, we match you with a few 3PLs, they give you back quotes, you choose one and connect. And we knew it was gonna be a little complex, so we kept the human on our side in the mix to try to facilitate. Anyways, we did that for, I don't know, about 6 months before we realized it was never gonna work. Like we tried a bunch of different iterations. We tried tweaking things. We had a list of other things to try, but it just felt like it just wasn't working. 3PLs were responding too slowly. There's still too much friction, too much lack of trust. It wasn't one thing. There was a lot of things that were just not working. So, we realized it wasn't going to work, or we admitted it wasn't going to work, and then changed game plan. So what we changed the game plan was the two main issues were trust and pricing, right? Because there's this back and forth negotiation, which no one liked. So what we said is, we're going to provide a price. Here's the price. And we are going to take the responsibility. So we're going to put our name on it instead of just being a connection. So we said, outsource it to ShipHero Fulfillment, which is a new concept. We will charge you, these are the list prices, like totally transparent and just putting our name on it. And we collect the money. but we still worked with those same 3PLs to actually provide the service. So in essence, uh, the actual product was the same, but the presentation was very different. So we launched that about 15 months ago at this point. So that went from a $0 revenue business to a north of $20 million business in that period of time. Those 15 months.
And so,
COVID.
sorry, I was gonna ask you. So because I know you guys have been through quite the iterations with the business, and I've been following along. So the fulfillment kind of arm to it, that was more recently, you mentioned?
Yeah, so that was like 15 months ago.
15
Yep.
months
So
ago.
that was a pivot off of the marketplace. So we launched the marketplace. It failed. We took some of that stuff, reskinned the way that we were presenting it, and launched it as marketplace, which as the fulfillment offer, which took us about 6 months. So it took us about 6 months from when we finally admitted, okay, this marketplace thing isn't working. We got to do something different.
Yeah.
Until we launched it as the fulfillment offering.
Interesting. Yeah, and then so just for some context for us all, so all along the way, I know you shared that you've scaled to 170 plus employees right now. So did you bootstrap from the early days, or what was kind of like the beginning like?
Yeah, so I had some money from my first business, which I didn't sell, but I operated. So I didn't need to collect a salary and was able to put in some cash. So we did that, and then we raised $435,000 on a $20 million safe note from some friends and family. And then we did $800,000 debt from a company called Lighter Capital, of which we owe about half still, and that's it. The rest was customers.
Amazing. And then I know you shared a little bit on Twitter as far as kind of building in the open. But could you share? I believe I guess you call it a side project or side business. That's a 7-figure business, though, correct?
So that's my e-commerce company. Yeah. So I still own it. It still exists. So yeah, I mean that's been basically 20 years old or 21 years old, that business now. Still chugs along. It does about $5 million in revenue now. It's the best it ever did was like 7.3, I think.
That's amazing. And then so I take it that gives you kind of a unique insights within the industry, since from that business you use your own product with ShipHero. Is that?
Yeah, we weren't actually our first customer, but we were an early customer. The first customer was a friend of mine who owns a company called Wine Chateau, and they had a bunch of brick and mortar stores, and they needed to be selling on, shipping online, and they were having just all sorts of trouble shipping the wrong product and things like that. So he wanted to didn't want to wait. And so we got him on first before I even got my own company on. But yeah, we were definitely an early customer, and that experience being able to dog food your own product made a big difference in the beginning.
Yeah. And then, so with the kind of, I would say like evolutions of the business, and, going to the marketplace and then learnings from that, and then now with fulfillment, you were going to mention as far as like how kind of COVID has impacted your business, what's kind of like the latest with things now?
Yeah, so we had these fulfillment partner warehouses, and then when COVID hit, the first thing we did was, get all nervous. Some of our customers went bankrupt, and shut down. And then, but after a few weeks, it became pretty obvious that activity was trending up in terms of our customers' shipping volumes and things like that. And we realized that we were going to run out of capacity in the fulfillment offering. So we launched our own warehouse, the first one on May 1st, which was a tough time. It was in Las Vegas. We didn't have anyone in Las Vegas. It was hard to get anyone out to Las Vegas. It's all sorts of technical difficulties, but we launched that one. And then we launched 2 others, the last one being October 1st. So we went from 0 warehouses to 3 warehouses sort of in the post-COVID or during COVID era. So yeah, obviously, e-commerce is overall had a huge positive from COVID.
Yeah, yeah. And then, so how does that's super interesting, moving kind of into the expanding the warehouses. So how does that kind of affect, I would say, like the org structure of your business and your team makeup?
So our COO, her name is Maggie, she actually came in to run the marketplace. So she didn't come in as a COO, she came in to run the marketplace, and she's the one who actually came to us and said, I hope you don't fire me, but this isn't working, and like I can keep making noise and telling you I'm doing stuff, but we're not going to succeed. We need to do something different. So we launched the fulfillment offering, and she spearheaded the operation side of that. And then so she really did a lot of the heavy lifting, most of the heavy lifting on getting the facilities up and running, working with the partners. She got promoted to COO, she got more equity, all that stuff. So she really took a lot of that on.
Nice. And then I would say, like, so out of curiosity, what is the fulfillment kind of component to your business? Like, what kind of percentage of revenue does that kind of account for?
So it's about 2/3 of our revenue right now. The margins are lower. The SaaS business is still a more profitable business. But yeah, it's 2/3 of our business, and it's growing really quickly. So it'll eventually be, 80% of our business.
Nice. And then on the SaaS side, what were some? I mean, I know this is kind of like a broad question, but what were some of the kind of challenges initially, with building the SaaS business for you?
Yeah, a lot. So I mean, the toughest thing really on the SaaS, our product's a very broad product, and it's a replacement product. So it's not. It's like switching e-commerce platforms, right? You're not on two e-commerce platforms at the same time, right? Your store's on one or the other. It's binary, which means in order to get people to leave a solution and come to our solution, we couldn't just take a narrow slice and like MVP and like, just add this on, right? We had to convince people to throw away their existing solution, which and switched ours, which is just a large commitment, which meant we needed a really broad product, and we needed a lot of trust. So really, for the first several years, we basically had no customers. A friend of mine, a couple other people picked up, but basically no one for years. And it definitely took a lot of faith that we were going to get there, because I mean, the revenue in the first few years was horrible, and I was not collecting a paycheck for I don't know, 4 years or something. So
Yeah.
And there was no if you looked at just at the numbers, there was no objective reason to think that it was ever going to turn into something. We believed it was, but yeah, that was definitely the biggest challenge.
Yeah. And so what would you say contributed was it direct kind of like outbound sales that led to like the initial kind of, revenue and adoption, and really a point for you where it turned into a business? Or?
No, so we're really bad at that. We're still bad at that. We still don't do outbound sales. We're trying to get there. I'm a computer programmer, not my nature to do sales. My co-founder, CTO of a large digital agency, again, not a salesperson, didn't have any sales DNA in the company. So we didn't do that at all, which was okay in the beginning because our product wasn't really ready. So I think if we had gotten a sales push, we would have been either disappointing customers or not successful. Like, it went to work, right? We just needed to keep investing all our money in product and get the product there. Our product does serve. There's not a lot of products that serve what we do. Like we have customers shipping $500 million a year worth of e-commerce orders using our software. There's not a lot of software that you can that sort of competes with that. So once we sort of established ourselves, had some big names, we have some public companies that use us. It's a relatively small community, so there was some conversation, and that's really what drove adoption, but it was slow, right? Word of mouth is slow.
Yeah, got it. And then would you say that is it the ideal kind of customer, for the SaaS product? Does that vary, or is it, is there like a very typical kind of size of the e-commerce store right now?
Yeah, so the typical customer on our SaaS business is doing, in the wide ballpark of $50 million in annual revenue. Like I said, we have ones that are doing over 500 million. We've got ones that they started around 10 million.
Got it. And then what does the pricing look like?
Too cheap. Our product starts at around $2,000 a month. We raised that. We used to start at $500 a month up till earlier this year, when we just had so much demand. We were just like, let's just raise the price and see what happens. That didn't hurt demand at all. So we start around $2,000 a month, no commitments, no contracts, super easy to get into. And probably should raise our price at some point.
Yeah. So that's definitely super interesting point as far as raising the prices. So you mentioned that you did some. How much did you? I would say like kind of like percentage ballpark. Did you raise the prices, and like what was the initial kind of feedback from your existing customers?
So we didn't raise on our existing customers. So we actually haven't raised prices basically on our existing customers in like 5 years, which is probably something also we should do next year. So yeah, we have people paying 10% of current pricing because they got in early. We increased our base price from $500 a month to $1,850 a month, but just for new signups. It didn't seem to. It changed the mix of who we got. It was actually a little better because it got rid of some people who really shouldn't have been our customers, were bottom end, and would come in and when you're trying to negotiate price because they're like, well, this solution's cheaper. And then just by raising our price significantly, it just made it clear to people, I think, who our product serves. It didn't hurt our number of signups really at all.
Yeah. And then, I'm super curious as far as from a marketing side too. Where would you attribute like most of the kind of inbound or top of funnel for the signups for sales coming in?
Yeah, on the SaaS side, it's still primarily word of mouth. It's just the community of, either, Shopify Plus, large merchants. And, we've been trying to do more of, LinkedIn and Twitter, been doing a lot of content, here's of videos. So it's hard to attribute stuff to that. That's what we've been doing.
Cool. So it looks like we got a question in here. We might roll into questions if that sounds good to you. But kind of before we do, is there anything that you wanted to kind of share with us as far as, over the past few years, just your journey from, the initial kind of building SaaS product to launching the marketplace that might be helpful for us as like early stage marketplace founders?
Just the two things that we learned is, one, we got things wrong more times than we got things right, but that was okay because we just kept changing the model. Like we fully committed to a model, and then like 6 months later said this doesn't work, and we fully committed to the next one. And like you got to get the team on board with that. Like even when we launched it, we're like, we're totally going to do this. We know it might not work, but like we're just all in on this. And if it doesn't work, that's fine. We'll be all in on the next thing. And we've had to do that several times before we got it right. And then the other thing is like we were pretty flexible in like what the model was going to look like, which helps because we don't have VCs, right? Because we went from a pure software to marketplace to taking over fulfillment to then launching our own warehouses, all in the course of like 2 years, right? And it was really just based on like, it just seemed obvious what the customers needed. And we didn't say like, because no investors want people to open warehouses. They're like, just be asset light. And like, I'd hear that all the time from people. I was like, sure, but you're not in the business, and like, that's not going to work So like, trust your gut as to the reality, and yeah, that would be my learnings.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Well, cool. So looks like we're going to go into some questions here. Hey, Phil, did you want to come on?
Yeah, of course. Hey, Aaron, thanks for coming on and sharing your story with us. I did have a question on the types of brands and companies that you guys generally will partner with. Um, do you partner mostly with a lot of food and beverage brands, given that the product life cycles can be much shorter than other CPG products?
Yeah, we do. So we've actually worked with Frito-Lay, which was a division of Pepsi, and actually, hopefully, knock on wood, before the end of the year, we'll have we'll be in our first Coca-Cola facility. So yes, we certainly do. There's a lot of stuff around lot tracking, expirations, compliance stuff, which we all do. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Awesome. Cool. Let's see. Hey, Rich, did you want to come on?
Hey, sorry, I was just finding the unmute button. Hey, Aaron, curious to know, when Shopify has obviously grown into like this Goliath over the last year or so, or before that, how you kind of approached it as a business? Did you see it as a threat at the beginning? Did you see it as a partnership? How have you evolved with it?
Hey, Richard. So yeah, my funny Shopify story is, when we launched our product, our first integration was with Shopify. And they had an app store, which was very nascent. And we submitted to the app store. And the guy from the app store just reached out to me privately and said, like, I'll approve you, but I'm just letting you know, so you're building correctly, that your sort of product is not for Shopify. Like, we have really small merchants, you're targeting larger merchants, like you should integrate with another platform. Which is funny because now Shopify deals with all these huge merchants. So I mean, they've been a good partner. They're actually our largest. They use our product. They're actually our largest SaaS customer by revenue. They pay us the most of anyone. It's not always an easy relationship. Like I said, they are the Goliath. Yeah, like I said, we've been with them since super early days, which helps. We have relationships with lots of people in the company, which doesn't help at all, because like, the person it's just a big company. So like, sure, someone really high up, it doesn't really help for the guy on the ground unless you get a call in favors all day, which you're not going to do. But yeah, overall, they've been a net positive. I don't think our company would exist if Shopify didn't exist. That answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. And I guess a follow-on question, in terms of competitors that have appeared in their app store, how do you kind of compete with them? It's like the SEO kind of constraints within the Shopify app store that you focus on?
The Shopify app store, I don't think it drives a ton to us, because we do have pretty narrow segments. We're not a broad product, right? We serve, mid to large. We have a lot of the biggest Shopify stores are on our platform, but they're basically like, we have on our SaaS product, we have like 500 customers, right? Versus there's Shopify apps that have 10,000 or more. So I think their algorithm is really based on connections, right? Like, that's an important metric for them, not the size of the connection. So even though we fulfill a lot of volume on their platform, we don't rank well. And that's okay. I mean, that's not really, it's not driving a lot to us directly, but what it does do is it gives us a lot of credibility, because we have a lot of reviews on there, and the reviews are good. So people definitely look at that, but I don't think it's like top of funnel. It's more of like validating that we're a legit product, and they could see like, oh, they have reviews, they're positive, and they're from these really large brands. And I think that helps our credibility. But SEOing on it, like, that's not something we work on. And I think I tried to in the beginning, in the early days, but I think it's really driven by install metrics, which we can't win that game. So we sort of don't try anymore.
Thank you.
Are you building something on the Shopify platform?
No, but we've leveraged similar kind of plugins before with shipping. We're an interior design company for offices, and for fulfillment and shipment and stuff, we've explored that. I've just always been very curious around that whole space and how we find the right provider and stuff. And I think Mike, there's someone else in the group building a Shopify app themselves, so it's kind of I'm just very curious about that whole topic.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, actually, Levi sent me a message. He's the one that's building on top of Shopify. So I think he wants to come on and ask a question. So.
Thanks, Mike. So yeah, no, we certainly are building on top of Shopify as kind of our wedge. To give you a little bit of context and background, what we're doing is collapsing the checkout. So essentially, being able to order from multiple brands, multiple products, all in a single checkout. And then what we're starting off is where a creator or an influencer would be sort of hosting that storefront, so their fans or viewers could purchase directly from there. And then I think one of the trickier things, aside from building the product itself, is actually the shipping and logistics side of it. So kind of standardizing shipping and trying to figure out a way to make it all work. Where if a consumer, say, purchasing shoes from Allbirds, a suitcase from Away, and a sweater from Everlane, like those are three isolated shipping costs that customer would essentially have to pay. And so we're just trying to figure out ways to perhaps offset that with some of the margin capture that we'll be doing. And so we'd love to just kind of get your thoughts on that, because there is I think a bigger hurdle in tackling sort of all of these logistics and all these different sort of tracking and shipping and everything like that. So truly appreciate you taking the time, Aaron, to give us some feedback or some advice there.
Sure. So are you dumping the orders, like an order into each of those Shopify stores? Like one, you create an order for Everlane, you create an order for Allbirds, etc.
Yeah. So capturing the payment and then injecting the orders right back into the CMS. Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So one thing I would say is they might give you, if they give you a hard time of getting into the app store, like you used to be able to do like unlisted apps, which used to be easier. They've also been locking down that also. So they're not going to make your job easy, unfortunately. I mean, in terms of the fulfillment, I would assume that you would just let the merchants fulfill the orders, and then like subscribe to webhook, get the notification of shipments, and then like host your own page or something where you show it. Like I wouldn't really rely on someone else, because it's going to be very different unless the brand specifically want to use their own. But there's so many different providers like Aftership, and I don't know, it's a whole bunch. So they're not all going to be on the same one, right? I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, and then is there any like just overall guidance, like given how deep you've been, working with various brands, on just things that we should just kind of like keep in consideration as we're sort of building out? And we released a small pilot, but again, like this isn't anything at scale yet. And so just things that just to look forward to, of like, hey, here are some things that you guys might have to tackle in the near future that would just be good to be cognizant of.
Yeah, why don't I connect with you after? I'll just chat with you, because I think it would probably be like Shopify API specific things that probably
cool.
will bore everyone else on the call.
Sounds good. Thanks, Aaron.
Awesome.
But you could if you just message me, I'll I don't know, set up a call or something.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Cool. Hey, I think Brett, you had a question? Let's see.
Yeah. Hey guys. Just turn the video on here. Hey, yeah, quick question. I just wanted to ask you about, the transitioning into, I guess you received enough customer feedback about which led you to the decision to actually do the warehousing and kind of fulfillment side of things yourself, which obviously required some kind of upfront investment into the infrastructure. Could you talk a little bit about like that process and maybe some of the factors that went into deciding like where, how big, like I don't, just kind of that asset purchasing process?
Yeah, so we did it as cheaply as possible, in that we did subcontractors first. So the first 4 warehouses were not ours. They were customers of ours that we just subcontracted out to. So the cost initially was only UI, marketing, a couple things like that, but no warehouses, really not a lot of fixed costs. And then we did jump into the fixed costs with the warehouses. We already had traction, we already had cash flow, so that made it, relatively easy. It was still scary. Like we found the sublease, so like we can get out in a year, and we did lots of planning around like how can we do this as cheaply as possible in case it doesn't work out. So we definitely still were worried on the downside. In retrospect, we got way too short a lease on way too small a spot, but we didn't know if it was going to work or not. So, well, like what's your business and what's the sort of decision point you're at?
No, honestly, nothing relevant. Just was very curious on, going from something that was a bit more like kind of either software driven or UI driven, and you were kind of like the marketing face of something, to then, locking down like a lease and dealing with like physical infrastructure. Is just kind of curious about, what went into that process. So.
Yeah, I would say it was definitely scary to do. It wasn't easy to make the decision and to just go ahead, because we had a really good SaaS business and super good margins, and there's a lot of reasons not to, right? Like our margins are gonna be lower, and we could go bankrupt, right? Like we're signing these leases that could destroy our business. So yeah, a lot of reasons not to, but we just felt like it needed to be done. So we did it anyway.
Thanks.
Awesome. Hey, Aaron, I actually had a question for you myself, which is, how have you kind of managed, I would say, building revenue and kind of cash flow as a more kind of lean business, early on, and then, to today, and kind of like, maybe some just, sharing some kind of like insights around that.
Yeah, I don't know that I have any insights. I don't know that we did it particularly well. It was a challenge. Yeah, it was brutal. I mean, there was definitely times where there wasn't enough years where there weren't enough cash flow. Didn't have any secret sauce. We just charged people monthly, which is a horrible way to build a business. You do all the work up front, and then you sell them in, and then you get 1 month's revenue, and then you got to wait another month to get the next month's revenue. You know what I mean? If we were better at sales, we probably could have done some more upfront contracts, but that wasn't our strong point. So, yeah, I mean, we explored debt options, which again, eventually we did one, but it wasn't enough. It didn't move the needle at all. And then, what else did we try? I mean, we definitely spoke to VCs, and we're not successful. Couldn't find anyone who we wanted to work with who wanted to work with us. So that failed. So really, it was just a lot of just doing the work and just grinding it out until the interesting thing is, like, we have negative net churn in our business, right? So our same customers pay us more every month, even if we don't add any customers. So like the long-term economics are good. So, we have to keep reminding ourselves of that. And you do basically get to a point where, our business is around 5 million in annual revenue, where it just becomes just so much easier, where it's like, okay, I actually have more money coming in every month that I need to spend. I could take a paycheck. That's always a great day. And then, it just gives you a different level of confidence, and it lets you relax a little more. But it was definitely difficult getting there.
Yeah.
I see Levi asked about keeping people motivated. So, I mean, my co-founder left, and then rejoined a couple of years later. So he wasn't that motivated. But then our first couple engineering hires, like, we just got really super lucky. This guy Russell, and then his brother Roger, who own more equity than anyone other than me in the company. Like, they joined, and they stuck around, which was more, I think, a testament to them than anything, I did or the company did. They were just loyal and hardworking and patient. And obviously they'll do really well for it because they had the equity. But yeah, I think it was just more on them. If we had gotten people who were a little more flaky as our first hires, we probably would have given up because they would have left and then we had to hire new engineers and it just wouldn't have worked.
Got it. Yeah, thanks for sharing more on that. So I'm kind of curious too, with all the different kind of components to your business. What is your like day to day like? What is like a day like as the CEO of ShipHero?
Right. Not super busy. I don't have a lot of things on my calendar. Today I had this and a meeting with my co-founder and COO, and that's my whole calendar for today. So I'm mostly just sort of watching what comes up, trying to help with issues that arise. There's always issues. I try to keep myself not too overworked so that when there is a crisis, which inevitably there will be, I'm somewhat fresh and able to jump in and help. And then I try to find like the one or two things that are blocking us at any given time, and focus on that. So, that could have been engineering or hiring. Right now it's sales and marketing around the fulfillment business. So I'm spending a lot of time, and I'll go into Google AdWords, create new campaigns, test them, talk to the guy who runs them, be like, why is this not working? Why don't we try this? Talk to the salespeople, look at the sales calendar and say, are we booked too far, not far enough? So I get really deep into whatever area seems like the blocking, the sort of what's holding us back. And then every few months, it's a different area. Hopefully, if we make progress, get through it, then there's the next road and there's the next bottleneck,
Yeah, cool. Actually, I think Rich had posted a question in the chat, I think on kind of along the lines on that. Yeah, so did you want to come on, Rich, and just ask?
Yeah, sure. It was kind of like being a bootstrap business myself. It's trying to keeping, incentives high with equity holders. Is there any tricks that you have of making sure that those equity holders in the short term are feeling that they're getting rewarded versus just this like and very long-term goal that one day they'll get a payout?
Yeah, so we always try to pay everyone a living salary, so no one needs to wait till the end. So the goal was no one should have to be waiting towards that long-term payout. So everyone could be comfortable and they're making, maybe a little bit less than they would if they worked somewhere else, but because they have the equity, but basically enough where they're not like, oh, I can't, buy a house, I can't send my kids to school. At this point, most of our team is older and, they have kids. So we always did that. That was hard to do. One of the main ways we were able to do that is I just didn't pay myself, which because I'm lucky enough that I had a previous company, I didn't have to. That really is what gave it to me, gave me that ability. But yeah, telling people to not live their life because 5 years from now you're going to get a payout as a bootstrap company is probably not realistic. So you do have to pay people. Well, the good news though is we have our, again, our first couple of employees who joined in, 2014, they're all still with us. And you're able to get a lot done when you got people with you for 6 years versus, sort of the normal VC backed model where it's about 3 years that people last. So it's an advantage of being bootstrapped and a disadvantage, right? It's harder to do, but you'll get people, the right people will stick around. You just got to pay them enough.
Yeah, and kind of a follow-on from that, whereabouts are your team located? Are they distributed in a particular city? People going into the office, working from home?
Yeah, so we've always been distributed because we didn't have any money because we're bootstrapped, so we didn't want to pay for offices. So I had some free office space that we would use on occasion, but we have more employees in, I think we have more employees in Argentina than the United States. It's close. And we've got employees in I don't know, 10 countries or so, and all over the US. So my co-founder's in Florida, I'm in New York, our head of support's in Texas, our head of engineering is in Argentina, got employees in, just all over the world. And mostly because it's cheaper that way. Our first 4 or 5 people were all in New York, and it's super expensive to hire in New York City. And we couldn't afford to get quality people, enough of them. So we just started looking more broadly, and it's worked out great. So being remote's been great. And the only thing I would say with being remote is we're not a home base and remote people. Everyone's remote. So I work from home. Even before COVID, I always worked from home. We're all on the same page. I never wanted it. So like the New York people felt like, those were all the executives, and then, all the lower class people were the people that were outside New York. I wanted everyone to feel like you could be promoted, you could, get to the top level of the company with no matter where in the world you are. And our head of engineering, which is, outside of our COO, the most important role, is in Argentina, and he's been working for us for years. I've never met him in person either.
That's super fascinating. And when you're building partnerships and doing like sales processes, do you meet people, or is it all virtual as well?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we meet people, I'm not far from New York City, so I'll just meet people in New York City, used to use WeWork, and just, grab an office conference room for a day. We also, I've met a lot of our employees at customers' warehouses. So we would fly before COVID. We'd fly people in, small group, 3, 4 people at a time. We'd go to a customer warehouse, work there for a couple of days. They get to see the product, feel the product. I fly down and go have dinner with them, hang out with them for a few hours. So we've done that sort of bonding thing. That's been really good. But not having an office, I know it's like, how are you going to meet with investors? How are you going to meet with customers? Like, just get a WeWork. Like, no one cares.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks for sharing more on that. Dan, you had a question on that, kind of on that note.
Hey, Aaron, how are you?
Hey, Dan.
It sounds like you've really, made some significant changes during COVID. So my question is really looking forward, what are you anticipating goes back and what stays?
In terms of like the industry, like the e-commerce business?
Yeah.
I don't have a crystal ball more than anyone else. It's just, I guess one advantage we have is we're in a huge industry. E-commerce in the United States is such a large customer set that while we're of a significant size, we process around $4.5 billion a year worth of goods. They're still very small relative to the size of the industry. So the industry growing obviously helps everyone, but it's not like we're 10% of the market. So if the market shrinks, we're going to shrink. We're a tiny percent of the market. We're 1% of the market. So I think if we do well, we're not as, the market is not going to really affect us that much versus someone like, say, Shopify, who's a significant percent of the market. So if the market goes down, it's sort of hard to beat those market forces with your own performance.
Cool. I actually had a question kind of on that. So, how big of a market is it for your SaaS product?
I don't know.
I mean, not like the exact number, but of course.
Right. I mean, so Shopify does about 25 times our GMV. So we do about 1 out of every 25 Shopify orders goes through us, which is a lot, but that means there's 25x, that we still, 24 times as much that we're still not getting. And that's just Shopify. And Shopify themselves is growing, I don't know, 70% year over year, something like that. So So the market there is expanding as well. So I think we're too small to really even worry about like market size. It's a lot bigger than what we're at.
Got it. Cool. All right. So I think we have time for one more. Hey, Rich, did you want to come on with that?
Yeah, sorry, asking too many questions. You mentioned earlier about building a really good product versus investing in like outbound sales, and it seems to make total sense. Did you have like a vision or a North Star product suite that you were going for, and you just started chipping away at it, or did you just start with like an MVP and just start adding features on?
The second, yeah, we thought we were going to be able to build a smaller product, and then just the feedback was always, wow, that's awesome. How does it do this? It's like, well, it doesn't. They're like, okay, can't use you. I think if we had known how big a product we needed to build, we probably never would have started. It would have been too daunting. So we kind of fooled ourselves and thinking it was going to be smaller than it needed to be. And then, yeah, we just kept going until, we realized that, okay, we're not able to satisfy everyone, but like half the people that knock on our door, like we have a broad enough product to satisfy them. And then once we got there, we just started to focus on scalability, stability, internal things, and stopped adding features. So sort of once we hit that number, we stopped broadening the product and said, okay, this is the product. This seems to be broad enough. Occasionally you'll add on something, right? That seems like a good idea, but basically stop the going wide and then start to say, okay, how do we make this faster? How do we make this more reliable? And start just iterating within that product set. So it was totally just our customers telling us what the feature set needed to be, not us knowing in advance.
That's great, thanks.
Awesome. That was a great question. Cool. Well, this is super helpful, Aaron. So I appreciate taking the time to join us and sharing more about ShipHero. So so what is, just out of curiosity, kind of what's the future look like for you, kind of like upcoming in the next few months, maybe, or year ahead with the roadmap of the business?
Yeah, so I mean, the short term is getting through peak season, so that's our really what we prepare for all year. We ship now on a busy day about 250,000 orders. We expect that like Cyber Monday, that's probably closer to 600,000 orders. So we need to make sure that we can do that. So really, that's the entire focus for the next couple of months. And then we hired our first finance person. So we didn't actually have we had a bookkeeper, but we didn't have any finance people. So we hired our first finance person, a VP of finance. And then we're probably the goal is to have him start preparing some financial stuff so we can actually go out and raise some money from professional investors rather than, the little bit we got from friends and family for the first time.
Awesome. Cool. And then we're just time for a little plug before we wrap up. So where can we keep up with you?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm on Twitter. You find me on Twitter, and then if you want to learn more about us, just shiphero.com, and it'll link you to our SaaS product and our fulfillment product. And then we also have some YouTube content. Recently been working on a series where we show one of the new warehouses and how we're setting that up. So it's like 5 videos so far. We still have a few more to shoot, which is fun if people like to kind of see the details of how the sausage is made. So yeah, it's just on YouTube. Just go to ShipHero.
Awesome. I'll definitely include a link to it in the description of this. So thanks again for joining us. This was super insightful, and it's incredible business that you built. So
thanks for the fun chat. Thanks,
awesome.
everyone.
All right. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks everyone for joining.